This is everything that I read for the month of January, plus 1 day of February. Starting with Let Me Tell You What I Mean by Didion, I think it's her weakest collection of essays, which is like fine. It's also really weak in the sense that there are repeating essays that she has throughout Slouching Towards Bethlehem and the White Album. They make a reappearance on this collection for some reason. I did enjoy it. It was fine. It felt like these essays had nothing to do with each other though, which is like neither here nor there. I don't think that's like a critique on whether the essays themselves are good or not. I still think they're great essays. I just think they're the weakest of her essays, but I much enjoyed reading them. I think my favorite was Getting Serenity, which I had read prior. It's just about her sitting in on a gambling addicts anonymous meeting, and I found the ending of the essay to be incredibly poignant. I always say that word wrong, but I thought it was great. There's like a quote maybe that I annotated. Getting Serenity. I got out fast then, before anybody could say serenity again, for it is a word I associate with death, and for several days after that meeting, I wanted only to be in places where the lights were bright and no one counted days. I really liked the realization that serenity and peace is kind of like giving up. I don't know exactly what about it speaks to me, but I much liked that realization, I guess. I don't know why I'm so out of fucking breath. Whatever. So this is what I read first. This is Let Me Tell You What I Mean by Joan Didion. Weakest collection of her essays, repeating essays, but overall enjoyable. Like, you could read this at the beach and like be perfectly fine and happy. But I read Lily Anolik's Didion versus Babbitt's. Initially, I never planned on reading this book, seeing as it felt utterly pointless. Spoiler alert, it is fucking pointless, and it's one of the worst books I've ever read in my life. She compares Joan Didion and Eve Babbitt, who stylistically, if you've read either of the two, you know they're the antithesis to each other. And she just kind of like sucks Eve Babbitt's dick all day, and sorry, excuse my profanity, that like was not necessary. What I should have said was she's incredibly biased towards Eve Babbitt, to the point where it's just genuinely not fair for her. I don't think she had to write a whole book about it. That's kind of like me writing a whole book about David Berman versus like Axl Rose, who like what are we doing? Whatever. It's also just incredibly poor writing, in my opinion, and not even just poor writing, incredibly aggravating writing. She has this really patronizing thing where she like talks directly to the reader and she tells you what you're supposed to feel, which, spoiler alert, I don't share anything in common with her on a narrative level or seemingly on a personal level, because like, holy shit, you're the most chopped woman ever on earth, and like, you should never write a book again. Hard. But her sources are incredibly ill-researched and, in my opinion, illegitimate, and they should not, like it is a moral dilemma that this book got fucking published, and also that it got published and it has quotes from Vogue, Joan Didion's first employer ever, right after she was fresh out of Berkeley, and quotes from Bret Easton Ellis, who like self-admittedly like is the biggest Didion fanboy ever. Why are we giving quotes to a book that interviews her like college ex-boyfriend? That doesn't really seem legitimate. All respect of how just absolutely stupid these sources were. College ex-boyfriend, like people who worked with her once, and like she just randomly claims that Joan's husband, is gay. Why should I care about that? Like, not even on the like, ew, this is really weird of you to like accuse her husband of being gay. They're both dead. This ceases to matter in literally any way at all. But two, like, we can just say anything now? We can just say that Joan Didion's husband was gay? Like, okay. Like, what are we on about? Anybody could write a book. This is like incredibly disheartening, yet motivating. But yeah, she does this thing where she talks to the reader, which I just like absolutely fucking hate. Jesus Christ, how weak does your writing have to be for you to literally say the words, hey reader? She started multiple chapters being like, hey reader. I'm not sure if you remember what I said like 2 chapters ago. No, I do, and I really wish that I didn't. Like, I really hated that book. But I have been quite enjoying to interact with things I don't respect or care about. And frankly, I don't respect that book at all. Not in any way, shape, or form do I respect that book. And like, whoever the publisher is, I like actually think less of you. I read Whatever by Houellebecq, which is right here. It's like only like 150 pages, so I moved through it pretty quick, but I really like Houellebecq. I read Platform in the fall and I really enjoyed it. I like his tone, which is really important for me when I'm reading. Like, I can't do with overly emotive tones and just kind of like exaggerated analogy. Like, I can't do it. So I much prefer people like Houellebecq, Ellis, whatever. But like, my god, dude, how many times are you gonna write the same fucking book? Like, honest to god, every book of his seems to be the same, and that's like fine. You know what the only book is that seems quite different? It's the one where he just fucking shits on Islam for the entire book. Cool. Awesome. So glad you ventured out of your fucking zone, dude. Anyways, I liked it. It was okay. I think it's impressive to have written a novel in the 90s about incels before incels were incels. I liked it. I probably will never reread this again. I'll probably give this to Dylan to read. After I read Whatever by Houellebecq, I read probably my favorite thing that I read this month, definitely my favorite non-fiction thing that I read this month. This is Susan Sontag's really long essay on war photography, and it's really good, and anything Susan Sontag did, I'm gonna eat it up. But this particularly, I think, is one of her best works ever. I'm not gonna state my opinions on war photography because that's like an incredibly dubious thing, and also the point of this entire essay is that war photography is such a difficult thing to come to a certain opinion on, a definitive decision on, because it is so nuanced, and it deals with such extremities, like the utmost extremities that you ever can in life, right? Like death, severe injury, just like the horrors of war. But reading about it in a theory way is really interesting because you're dealing with the utmost extremities that human life can offer, like the utmost tangible, and then you're reading about it in a theoretical way, which is just like feels almost like illegal and like really makes you speculative, which I quite enjoyed this book because war photography has been something I've thought about for years, and I thought that it was like a moral failing on my end that I couldn't come to a definitive decision. I don't think anyone realistically should come to a definitive decision on war photography because in some ways it's really necessary, and then there's the obvious critiques of like fucking voyeurism and whatever. But I think this essay is really great to read. It's also really great to read in the contemporary when like people don't necessarily have a choice in consenting to viewing or partaking in war photography. It's kind of just something that's like shoved down our throats, and I'm really intrigued by the kind of moral dilemma that it poses now, that you can just like scroll past a video of literal genocide, and then this kind of imposes a severe like moral debate within yourself of like, holy shit, am I a monster? I'm the most privileged person ever, like I'm fucking in LA watching this video in my bed and I just fucking scrolled past, and this is like the reality for like so many people. But that's also like an incredibly difficult thing to kind of answer or like ponder, because it's like you used to have to consent in some way, shape, or form to engaging with war photography, whether it was turning the TV on or going to buy a newspaper. You don't have to consent anymore, it's just going to be shoved at you. It's a lot to think about. But next is Society of Spectacle by Didion, I think that's how you say his name. But I read this because she sources him a lot in this, and from my understanding, this dude is like a structuralist, like philosopher, and TBD on if he turned into a post-structuralist, because most structuralists did turn into post-structuralists. Like, actually, who gives a fuck though? But I read this through a post-structuralist lens because I read this first, and I didn't necessarily view it in the obvious critique of capitalism, and like I read it within the subtext of war photography. So I think that might have like transmutated the book in a weird way, but it was fine. I like appreciate him. He's actually quite legible, which is like a feat any French philosopher should like hail. If anything, they would reject it, but whatever. I don't know where my copy of it went, but I read a book called Lost Cat by Gaitskill, and it was about this like woman who lost her cat, which really, how many outcomes can there be? Like it was a sad book. It was supposed to teach me something about grief and love, and I didn't really learn anything from it, to be honest. I think her whole point of the book was like, you should be as nice to people as you are to like baby animals, and I was like, no thank you. Not even no thank you, but just like actually rebuke that. But it was good. It was a nice little break between I read this and then the book about the lost cat, and then I read Guy. And then now I'm reading The Slicks by Maggie Nelson, which is basically just an essay comparing Sylvia Plath and Taylor Swift. I was really excited to read Maggie Nelson because I've heard amazing things about her, but I'm gonna be honest, I probably chose like the absolute worst place to start. I don't like this. I don't dislike it actually. I'm really indifferent towards this, but this essay had the potential to be something I fucked with incredibly hard, as there's quite possibly two nouns, Taylor Swift and Sylvia Plath, that like I absolutely like shun more, or like, you know what I'm trying to say by this sentence. This is mid in every way. It feels really 2015 like BuzzFeed feminism-y, which is disappointing. But maybe I'm gonna try to read some of her other work and try not to internalize this too much, because it's really bad, honestly. It's just cringe, and it feels obvious, like none of this really needed to be said out loud. It also feels like she like woke up one day and was like, it would be so crazy if I wrote a book like comparing Taylor Swift and like Sylvia Plath. And it's just not. Frankly, her points in it aren't that strong, and like she'll often contradict herself. She'll totally contradict herself actually. But I like the idea of this. I hate the execution of it. I also, I went into it with the kind of idea that it would be similar to Joan Didion's essay on Martha Stewart, where she acknowledges this idea of a person as capital, but this does not like give that, and like whatever, I tried. I'm really tired. I probably would have done a better job at explaining. No, I wouldn't have done a better job. I'm tired, and I'm gonna go to bed now. Yeah. Oh no. Oh no. I just got a text that I have to go to fucking tennis this weekend. Okay. Anyways, those were the books that I read this month. I think I'm gonna read another book, probably, at some point in my life, right? I don't know. I probably won't do one of these every month because I feel like it would make it completely unenjoyable for me.